I call Chris Bishop.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Well, I'm not sure I'll be taking economics advice from the professor anytime soon. I'm just going to throw that one out there for the House. Look, Mr Speaker, this budget that we're debating this afternoon, coming to the final stages of the debate, was a confident budget delivered by a confident government in charge of an increasingly confident country. And, sir, in my contribution to the debate, I want to focus on the three major themes that I see coming through from the budget. Firstly, the continuation of a sustainable economic plan that is working. Secondly, the continuation of the government's focus on creating an outward-looking, confident country that is connected to international markets and is welcoming and accepting of migrants, both foreign capital and labour. And thirdly, the thing that the opposition does not want to talk about, and that is the social investment approach at the heart of this budget. So on this first theme, sir, about the sustainable economic plan that is working, this budget, sir, builds on the hard work of previous years, and it locks in and continues to lock in a sustainable program that is growing the New Zealand economy, creating wages rising faster than inflation and creating jobs. It locks in things like ACC levies falling by $1.5 billion a year, overseen by my good colleague Nikki Kay. That's right, and it locks in extending ultra-fast broadband to over 80% of Kiwis, sir. It locks in building skills for industry, things like the ICT graduate schools that I know are going to be very important for our very fast-growing ICT sector. It locks in increased innovation funding, sir, through Callaghan Innovation, based in my neck of the woods in the Hutt Valley, which I'm very pleased about, sir. In short, this is a confident budget, sir, that does all the things that New Zealand needs to grow and get ahead in the 21st century. Also, sir, it locks in things like a fast-growing economy, wages rising faster than inflation, and over 200,000 jobs created since 2011. And as my good colleague Judith Collins pointed out just a few moments ago, sir, we have positive household savings in New Zealand. We have had those for 5 years now, and the last time we had a rate like that was in 1995. So what has been the response of the Labor Party and members opposite to this very good budget, sir? Well, the first response, which came right at the start of the budget debate all those months ago, was Andrew Little's pitiful response speech, sir. And I know it was a long time ago, but it really was absolutely pitiful. And it's just hilarious to sit there on this side of the House to see Labor members opposite, and they realised, I reckon, about 5.5 minutes into the speech, that it was going to be probably the worst budget reply speech since David Shearer's 2 years before, right? I reckon they realised about 5.5 minutes in, and that's when and then I think he realised it too, actually, to be honest. I reckon Andrew realised it was going to go pretty badly. And that's when we got the references to Gene Simmons, the constituent, the terrible joke that annoyed Young Labour and everybody else about fiscal gender reassignment surgery, and all of those lame attempts at humour. So that was the first response from the Labor Party. And then we had in the weeks afterwards, then we had the obsession with the surplus. Now, you'll note, Mr Speaker, they've stopped talking about the surplus, but for the initial weeks following the budget, there was this obsession with the surplus, that the budget before, in 2014, had forecast a very small surplus, and then budget 2015 comes along and it forecasts a slightly small deficit, which is absolutely hilarious because the Labor Party has spent 7 years opposing every piece of fiscal restraint that this government has enacted, every cut, even things like Moroccan cooking courses, subsidised macrame classes, all of those very sensible and prudent things that the national government has done. Sue Moroney tweets away about how it's a human rights violation to stop somebody from having a $3 a week macrame class or Moroccan cooking class. They've opposed every single cut, and then they turn up and say, oh, well, you should have got back into surplus. I mean, tut, tut, tut. Naughty you, national government. You really should have got there sooner, right? And also, they spent the first year after the 2008 election calling for fiscal stimulus. David Cunliffe used to issue, very serious press releases about how the global financial crisis was happening in the world and the national government must respond in a resolute and forthright manner and immediately massively increase deficit spending. Well, if we followed that path, sir, we did run a deficit, and we have run a deficit for a number of years, but if we had massively increased spending, we would be in far more of a hole, sir, according to the Labor Party. And of course, we should never forget, sir, that it was the Labor Party's reckless fiscal mismanagement mismanagement of the economy that caused us to go into recession before the rest of the world, before the global financial crisis, that pushed up government spending, that pushed up interest rates and that pushed up inflation and caused us to go into recession before the rest of the world and caused us to have 11% mortgage interest rates and 5% inflation in 2008 and caused the tradable sector of the economy to be in recession for 5 years. So having caused the problem in the first place, the Labor Party then has the temerity to turn around and complain about the measures we put in place to try and tackle that deficit, and then they have the temerity to turn around and complain that we should have got there sooner. So I think that was a pretty silly response. So they quickly realised that was not a good idea. Then we moved on to the diversification argument. That, they became obsessed with diversification, ignoring the fact that this budget, like budgets previously, have been precisely about diversifying the New Zealand economy. That's why we've been investing in things like research and development, and they often complain about that. This panacea of the New Zealand economy is research and development tax credits. Well, there is more spending on research and development and science and innovation by the government than ever before. It has increased under rapid rates at this government, 70% since 2008. So we are doing that, and that's why things like the kiwi fruit industry is doing well. That's why things like the ICT sector is doing well. That's why the red meat sector is doing well. That's why tourism is doing very well. This economy is diversified. And then we had the argument that it's all about dairy. So along comes some price shocks in the dairy industry, and then the Labor Party goes, well, you've got to do something. You've got to do something. We don't know what. We don't know exactly what, but you must do something. This is the classic response of social democrats everywhere, of socialists and of left-wing parties. The government must do something. You have to do something. We don't know what. We need a plan B. We don't know what that plan B might be, but you must do something. So now they're obsessed with dairy. And, and forgetting about the diversification argument. And then we get Andrew Little saying, well, we need foreign investment in New Zealand. We need foreign investment in New Zealand. Literally an hour after railing against foreigners investing in New Zealand. I mean, these guys seriously do not know what they believe anymore. They really don't. So the Labor Party has not very much to say about one of the central themes of the budget. That brings me very nicely, sir, to the second theme, which is about an open and confident New Zealand. This budget increases support for New Zealand trade and enterprise. It increases support for our international education industry. It increases support for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to negotiate things like free trade deals. And sir, I want to make a very serious point about the Trans-Pacific Partnership here, because there's a very serious question for the Labor Party in the next few weeks and months, I hope, with the conclusion of the Trans-Pacific Partnership talks, which I hope will happen. And it actually is almost an existential question to the history and reality of what the Labor Party is. It is almost a crisis inside the Labor Party. The question for the Labor Party is this: are they going to be a responsible party of government that continues the bipartisan consensus actually started by their own party in 1984, which is that New Zealand's future is of one that is connected to the world, that is connected to the global economy, that does not try and insulate itself from global competition and market forces? Is it going to be that responsible party, or is it going to be a party that harks back to the worst excesses of 1970s orthodoxy, of big government, of repressive insularity, of a government that tries to shield away New Zealand from the rest of the world? This is Jane Kelsey-onomics. Jane Kelsey has never seen a free trade deal that that she thinks we should sign. She was opposed to CER. She was opposed to the China Free Trade Agreement. She's opposed to the TPP. She's almost certainly opposed to the Korean Free Trade Deal, sir. This is the big question that confronts the Labor Party. And the question for the Labor Party is this: is Phil Goff and Clayton Cosgrove and all of the moderate people who know that that's in New Zealand's interests, and in the case of Phil Goff, who actually helped start the TPP negotiations back in 2008, are they going to win the battle inside the Labor Party? Or is the hard left, the Jeremy Corbyn supporting Claire Curran and her acolytes, insofar as Claire Curran could have acolytes, is Claire Curran going to win the battle inside the Labor Party? This actually goes to the heart and soul of the Labor Party and of New Zealand's future. My point, sir, is we need bipartisanship on the Trans-Pacific Partnership deal. We would like the Labor Party to support this very important deal for New Zealand's future. Sadly, it seems like the hard left is going to win this battle inside the Labor Party, and that will be to the detriment of New Zealand's future. Sir, this is a budget that locks in an open and confident New Zealand that is welcoming of foreign investment, it is welcoming of foreign migration, it does not seek to demonise Chinese people like the Labour Party opposite seeks to do. Because of that, sir, I am very strongly in support of this budget.